here, loved by many, hated by few, respected by all, was second to none. The best radio show from Como to the Congo. And if you're part of Fort Worth, Texas, you should know where the Congo's at. If you're from Fort Worth, Texas, and you're from the Garden of Eden, you're not there because you've been paved away because, hey, that neighborhood doesn't exist anymore. But we like to send a shout out. Gabe, you didn't change where normally the camera's here, but but that's all right. But that's okay. That's okay because I want all of the people right here on YouTube that are looking right at me now, and all of the people that are looking at me at 10th Street. Can you hear me? The Bottoms. Can you hear me? Bonton, Idols community. Can you hear me? Uptown. Can you hear me? Wait a minute. That's State and Thomas Street, ain't it? Short North Dallas. Can you hear me? White Rock. I'm calling all of these communities. Little Elm Thicket. Can you hear me? You know, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about communities, Little Egypt communities that if you are in Dallas, Texas, some of you may not even know they even exist because they've been paved away. And today I have Dr. Collin Yarbrough. Almost. ABD. Right? That's in the doctoral world they call all but dissertation. You know,
Yeah.
For those people who are ADD, they don't know what ABD is about.
Yeah.
But you know, when you have to take all these courses and then do all this writing, which clearly you've done on Paved Away, the infrastructure, policy, and racism in an American city. Now I know that's doctoral work because when you have a title of a book and then you have all of that long stuff afterwards, then that counts as words to the dissertation. Glad to have you here,
Glad
man.
to be here. Thank
Glad
you.
to have you
Appreciate
here.
it.
I wanted to have you here on the show because your book, Paved Away, is a book that should be read by everybody in Dallas when it comes to examining what Dallas is about and racism. I understand that a lot of people, I've read all these books, The Accommodation by Jim Schulte. As a matter of fact, Jim had asked me to write the sequel to it, and I said, man, that's too much. I can't do that. And then White Metropolis by Michael Phillips.
Yep.
We've had Michael Phillips here on this show as well. And now we have you here on this show.
Scraping the bottom
So,
of the
hey,
barrel.
No. What we're doing here is we're making sure everybody get educated.
Yeah.
Educated. Tell me about Paved Away, man.
Well, I mean, you listed off the names of so many neighborhoods in Dallas that have literally been paved away. And so this book, Paved Away, looks at 5 of those neighborhoods. It looks at Short North Dallas, which is now Uptown. Looks at Fair Park and the parking lots that were built there on the west side of Fair Park. Looks at Little Mexico, 10th Street, and, oh my goodness, Deep Ellum. So those are the 5 neighborhoods that we look at through this and try to understand what are the different ways that highways, parks, zoning, all sorts of other policies destroyed, bisected, and frayed these neighborhoods in Dallas to the point that they either no longer exist or hang on by a thread today.
By a thread indeed. You know, we have that happening now in North Dallas with the Elm Thicket.
Yep.
And that's for people that don't know where that's at. That would be the black community, which is near Love Field, which Love Field took part of through eminent domain.
Yep.
Love Field wouldn't be as big as it is today if it hadn't been for them taking over a black neighborhood.
No.
And a lot of people don't know that. Black community, they don't know that.
No.
They don't know that. So what prompted you to write this book?
So it was actually, I was in grad school. I made my way to SMU for seminary. So that's actually why I was at SMU to begin with. And I ended up I'm an engineer by training. So I spent 7 years doing pipeline engineering here in Dallas and across the state. But I ended up at seminary, and I had some friends recommend a class called Context and Impact of Design. And so it was over in the engineering school. So it was some design stuff. So I was like, well, that's interesting. I have some room in my schedule. I'll see if I can take it and see what it's about. And so when I took that class, one of the main projects was writing a paper. And in that paper, you were supposed to investigate some big design element in Dallas. And so there are some suggestions about what you could write about, like the Meyerson or the Arts District or something like that, something big that we think of when we think of Dallas. But at the bottom of that list was Central Expressway and I-30.
Mm-hmm.
And for the life of me, I could not figure out why they had included highways on this list. Because as far as I'm concerned, those aren't really beautiful design.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something you use. But I was like, well, I don't know. I use Central every day. So maybe it'll be interesting to find some information out. I don't know. So I went out on a limb, chose Central Expressway, started doing the research on it. And I still remember February 17th, 2020. I was doing research for that paper, and I came across a New York Times article that was talking about the bodies of 1,157 formerly enslaved people who had been excavated and moved to make space for the construction of the reconstruction of the highway in the late 80s, early 90s. And it was at that moment all of these things that I was learning in seminary about kind of Old Testament ideas of like what it means to have a just city, or an unjust city,
Mm-hmm.
those kinds of things, was clicking with what I understood as an engineer about how you build things and what impact that has on people, dead or alive. And I knew, having built projects, I was like, there is no way I would ever be allowed to move bodies from a cemetery to make space for some sort of project, some piece of infrastructure. I would have to go around. So the fact that they had the ability to move all of those black bodies from rest to make space for a highway, I couldn't let it go.
So you had never heard of that before?
No, I'd never heard of it. And I'd spent a lot of my time in my early 20s in Uptown. So this was at Lemon and 75
That's
Central.
pretty close to where it's at.
Yeah, it is, yeah. And I spent a lot of my early time, or my early 20s, in Uptown, thinking to myself, why are all these cemeteries here in the middle of Uptown? And it was at that moment I realized I was asking the wrong question.
So you were asking the question that everyone normally asks, such as they normally ask is, why did they build this cemetery here?
Yep.
Next to the Walmart.
Yep.
Which, that's where the cemetery is at.
Yeah, it is.
Literally next to the Walmart.
Yep.
You go out in the back, as normally people do in the back, and they take the refuse out and everything, and they put it in the dumpster and everything. And then on the other side of the alleyway is the cemetery.
Several cemeteries.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's 4 of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so the question I should have been asking is, why is all this development around these cemeteries? And that's when I found out that Uptown wasn't Uptown before the 2000s, and I learned about Short North Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you learn about that history and you start digging in there, I just started to go every highway I looked at, whether it was I-345 through Deep Ellum, Woodall Rogers that also cut through the Short North Dallas neighborhood, the Tollway, 35, 45. Everywhere I looked, I kept finding these patterns.
Okay, so let's talk about the patterns here.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that John Wiley Price, it was John Wiley Price then, it wasn't Commissioner Price then, but it was John Wiley Price. And he had said that if you name a freeway, you can name a racist, name a Klansman. So that's what he said. And it wasn't too far from the mark. R.L. Thornton, Klansman. Woodall Rogers, same thing. So Woodall Rogers, let's go with Woodall Rogers. Now, I used, before we had this conversation here, I used your book as a way to explain what Remembering Black Dallas was about. I said, let's take a trip with you, if you will. Let's go south from Richardson and go downtown. And then I said, let's make a stop and we made a stop on Central Expressway, and we went to the Walmart, and so right next to the Walmart is the cemetery, 1,132 bodies. But if we keep further, as we do in Oak Cliff, hang a right, hang a right, we hang a right on Woodall Rogers, and we go toward Little Mexico, which is Woodall Rogers. And there's a freeway, Woodall Rogers, that eliminated Little Mexico. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So Little Mexico actually is next door to Short North Dallas, just west. So a lot of the places we think of, like where the Perot Museum is now, where Victory Park is, all of that area was Little Mexico at one time. So it was originally, at the turn of the, 20th century, it was a largely Jewish community. And then after the Mexican Revolution, migrants were coming in for freedom from the Mexican Revolution, trying to come in to Texas and seeking refuge in the area. And the only place that they could find a place to live was with the Jewish community. And so they started coming in and migrating, and eventually it became an almost entirely Mexican-American barrio in the area. And so places like Pike Park were somewhat available for them to use. Not really. Still segregated.
They could only use it on one day.
One day, and if they were going to use it,
they had to clean the pool out.
Had to clean the pool out. Kids would pee in the water, so that's the water they had to swim in the next day. All sorts of stuff. Like the atrocities that happened at Pike Park are just unfathomable. And then right outside Pike Park, you have what used to be Turney Street, which is kind of the main thoroughfare right through Little Mexico. And that eventually, and if anybody's been on Harry Hines through Uptown, coming down the North Tollway, that used to be Turney Street. Well, eventually, over time, that became Harry Hines, and it widened and widened and widened. It's like 6 lanes wide today. You couldn't try to cross that if you wanted to on foot. But with the development of the tollway, that became the inlet into downtown, because it's all about how do we get people from outside of Dallas into downtown and out of downtown as fast as possible.
And that's pretty the way we have people coming in to downtown Dallas now.
Absolutely. Yep.
So they're coming through downtown Dallas, or towards downtown Dallas, on what was once someone's neighborhood and community. So those people basically have disappeared. Where did they go to? They didn't disappear. Where did they go?
No. Well, for Little Mexico, the people that I know have either moved to West Dallas, and other barrios out there.
So do they go into apartments? Do they go into, what do they do?
It depends. Some people did stay. The Little Mexico Village apartments are still there today. Public housing project that was developed. That's still there today. So some people were able to stay. But other people that left, they left and found new homes, new houses in West Dallas, Oak Cliff, all over the place.
Or new housing developments they moved into. So did they give them like fair market value for their homes?
That I don't know. The evidence and the research that I found suggested yes in Little Mexico's case, but that wasn't always the case in other areas, like North Dallas or in Fair Park or in other places like that. That was definitely not the case when eminent domain was concerned.
Now, I was, Gabe, it's about time for us to go to a break as well. We can play some of our local music a little bit. When I was in Little Mexico and I was talking to some individuals there, they had mentioned the fact that they lived there and they didn't get what they considered fair market value, and then they moved into the West Dallas housing projects.
Yeah.
So what we did was we created a situation where people who had a sustainable community then were forced to move to a place where they were basically wards of the state.
Absolutely. One of all places to live, to move to the West Dallas housing project, that's a crime, one, compounded by a crime, two, because that just put them right in the bullseye of an environmental justice ticking time bomb.
Yeah, see, you talking my language. Yeah, you got me when you said environmental justice. All right, when we come back from break, we will continue with the drive south. So we are now on Woodall Rogers, and now we're getting ready to go into Oak Cliff. But before we do that, we're going to take some music. Play some jazz music if you can for us, and we'll be ready to roll back. All right? You're listening to the smooth sounds of Zamil. I was with Zamil this past week. You remember that?
Yeah.
We were all together at this SMU Impact Night.
Yep, we were.
And we were, you didn't know Zamil played music like that.
No.
Yeah, that was Zamil. Hit that again, man. Just one more time when you got you on show. You
hey.
Yeah, that nice slow music. We were at Impact Night.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's SMU. You see, you got into it now. Yeah. Man, we were talking during the break time about going into Oak Cliff, and Zamil is from Oak Cliff as well, and he had lived at one time in the Bottom, which is the Freedmen's community. But you know, I'd heard about R.L. Thornton. That's R.L. Thornton when it goes south. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So R.L. Thornton goes south straight through Oak Cliff and straight through two Freedmen's towns, the Bottom, and then 10th Street. And we have...
What's the difference? Obviously, one's on the bottom.
one's on the bottom, one's 10th Street. As far as
Texas education.
Yeah,
boy,
right.
I tell you.
As far as I understand it, the bottoms are the area that is closer to the Trinity River levees and kind of that area, the bottom, right around the levees. And then 10th Street is a little further south as you start kind of coming up a little bit up the hill a little bit.
Yeah, up on that hill.
Yeah. I hope I got that.
No, you got it right.
Okay.
You got it right. Where you from?
Lake Highlands.
Lake Highlands.
Yep.
Are there any Freedmen's communities around there?
Yeah. Well, there were.
Well, you follow right into it, dude. You follow right. You see how I interview, right? You know, I already knew where you were from.
Yeah.
I just wanted you to answer the question. It's like a lawyer.
Little Egypt.
Yeah, Little Egypt.
Yep.
Where's Little Egypt at? Or was?
Was right on Northwest Highway. I can't think of the cross street. I think it's Lake Highlands.
Yes,
is the cross street there, but it's a shopping center. Yeah.
Yeah, they do us wrong any kind of way. They say, we got to build a freeway. Where are we going to go at? There's some black people somewhere around here. Yeah, I think we found them. We're going that way, folks. And, you know, we need to build a shopping center. Where are we going to go at? I don't know. It's some black people around here. Well, I don't know. Let's build one there. And the same thing that happened when we say Little Egypt, and you also say when we're talking about the Ross Perot Museum and Perot Museum, it's like we are being used as a commodity for public construction.
Yeah.
Yeah, we own it, but you don't know how long you own it.
Right. When it's not labor anymore, it's like, well, we're going to take your livelihood and everything else. And we're not going to steal your labor directly anymore or your lives, but we're going to take everything you have through eminent domain and building this for the public good.
Right.
And we know that public is limited.
So who's the public? Public looks like you, not
Public
me.
looks like me. Dallas was built by and for people like me.
Right. The first bill of sale was Jane Elkins, African-American woman. Yep. And that's the way it's been ever since. So how many construction, building sites, residences were lost during the construction of R.L. Thornton?
Oh, gosh. Man, you're hitting me with numbers questions?
Now, you have to do numbers.
Oh,
There's no
man.
numbers. I mean, you ain't even got to resort to it's in your book, but that's okay. But, you know, it's like...
That's a question for our friend Katie Cross.
Yeah. But she would dig it, no
Yeah.
pun intended, because she's an archaeologist, and that's what they do. They dig things.
They dig it.
Yeah. So, but, you know, there's like hundreds of... That's the answer, the hundreds.
Yeah.
It was not just like 20 or 30 neighborhoods.
No.
I mean, 20 or 30 houses. It's like hundreds of houses were lost. From the Trinity River bottom all the way down to Marcellus Avenue, where the zoo's at.
At least easily. Yeah.
That's quite a bit, and we seem to be losing that again when they create the deck park and all kinds of things like that.
Well, and it's not just homes; it's businesses too. You know, when I talk to people in 10th Street, like Lou Nelson's, people whose families had businesses.
That's up on that hill up there?
Yeah, just they were right in
It looks
the
abandoned
crosshairs.
and everything.
Well, it's not there anymore. Her father's tailor shop was right in the land where the highway went, and so they had to move entirely. And so everything that they had was right in the way of the highway, and they had to pick up and move and go further, east or west. I can't remember exactly. But it was the same story in Short North Dallas, too. Highway cut right through Hall Street. The heart of black economic power in Dallas was on Hall Street and through Deep Ellum.
Now, the Lewis Bedford family, which the school, Atwell Middle School, now is named Lewis Bedford Middle School, but Lewis Bedford had said that his son had said, right there where you're sitting at right now, had said that his family's, there was a store that they went to. That store now is where the Walmart's at. He just mentioned what was once there.
Yeah.
This was there, and you see that quite often.
Oh, yeah. Well, when you talk about, like, the density of economic activity was incredible. When you look at the phone books from right before the highway went in, there were over 100 businesses on Hall Street between Ross and State. And today, I think you've got like a Starbucks, the Walmart, maybe a Cleaners. So it's just a fraction of what could be contributing to the city. And it's like there was more being done in economic prosperity for the city, economic prosperity for black wealth in Dallas, and that's all gone.
And it's generational wealth, too, because if you lose that, a lot of our connection is what your family did, okay?
Yeah.
Now, if your family owned Black and Clark,
yeah,
you can tell I read your book. If your family owned Black and Clark, then you hand it down to someone else in your family.
Yeah.
And then they hand it down to someone else, so forth and so on. If you're a doctor, then chances are your son may be a doctor. That ends up happening as well. So we lost that, because then if you no longer own that Cleaners, all you have to say is we used to own a Cleaners. It's where Central Expressway's at now.
Yeah. Or you have to move somewhere else, and you may not have the same economic possibilities wherever you moved to, whether that was Oak Cliff or out of the city entirely, than you had before.
Right.
And so it's just,
It's like Backus Cleaners moving from South Dallas and moving to Frisco. That just won't work.
No.
It just won't work. So we are now in Oak Cliff now, and freeways again. What other freeways?
Oh, you got 30, you got 45, you got
Okay, let's go. Let's go with 30.
Okay.
This is not in your book, but let's
go.
talk about some other things in 30. And this is something that I researched recently myself about 30 and about Dolphin Road.
Yep.
And this is where it comes with environmental justice.
Some stories I couldn't include in the book.
Right, that's like, wow. That's like anytime you write a dissertation, you go like, well, I want to put this in here. And then you go like, okay, it's in here. And then you go like, I'm going off in something I don't want to go into.
Yeah.
I need to go back. Let me take that out.
Yeah.
But Dolphin Road, where it became a community that black people were living in, and then you ran the I-30 through it as well.
Yep.
And incidentally, that community was built on a converted landfill.
Yep. The literal intersection of environmental racism and infrastructure racism.
Right. I got to write that one down, infrastructural racism. That's good. I'm going to have to cite them now.
You don't have to cite anything of mine.
Well, okay. So that along with CF Hahn Freeway. CF Hahn Freeway, what we used to call Dead Man's Curve. When you're coming from CF Hahn Freeway, then you're going to Central Expressway that way. That took Bonton area as well, the ideal community as well.
Absolutely.
So it wiped that out. There were homes there.
And then built a levee around it, like a little moat.
Yep.
And cordoned it off.
Yep.
So all you had was Bayard Street. Coming out, you had one way in, one way out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And people wondered why was Bayard Street one way in and one way out. It wasn't always that way.
No.
It wasn't always that way.
Nope.
All right, now we're back in South Dallas now. You see how I didn't.
Yeah, I'm trying in my mind. I'm going through the map. I'm like, where are we going?
Right, we're going because we're coming up on the end of our interview as well, because we are now going to. We're going to South Dallas and we're going to Fair Park.
Okay.
Okay. Now Fair Park.
Yeah.
Where all the brothers and sisters always be saying, "Hey, park here in my house. Park here at my house." And that's the one way of making money when, it's a way of making money. I mean, you own the property, and there's something viable there that you can make some property money off of. Nothing wrong with that at all. Mm-hmm. And then some people decide that you're making too much money off of people parking in your front yard. Why don't we just take all your homes that are near the fair? And what happened on that?
Oh, man, we probably don't have enough time. But yeah, they took people's homes in the Fair Park neighborhood and turned them into the parking lots that we have.
So where's the parking lots at?
I always call it the west side of Fair Park. I don't know if that's the right term. The southwest side. Basically, if you're coming in on, what is that?
By the South Dallas Cultural Center?
Yeah, by the South Dallas Cultural Center and all that right there. If you're coming in on that area, that's right where those parking lots that are right there.
Where everybody says, "Oh, I'm gonna park in here because it's safe."
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just being real. That's what
real.
people say.
And that's
I know people in South Dallas gonna say, "No, you didn't say that." No, that's what people say. I mean, but they can jack your car inside the parking lot too. So hey, that's it. Go ahead.
And that's why they built the parking lots to begin with.
Because
so the city of Dallas.
Because white people say, "I don't want to park my car out there. I want to park it in here."
Yeah,
where it's safe.
The parking lots were built to make white people going to the fair feel comfortable. There's a study that was done by the Economic Research Association that the city or the fair carried out, and we have like the transcripts from those focus groups, and they said, if we built a paved, lit, and fenced parking lot, would you feel safe going to the fair? And there's this great line there where it says, with a resounding yes, the citizens of Dallas agreed. And you're just like, I mean, it is flat out racism not even being hidden. It is right out in the open, paid for. I was just like, I can't wrap my head around it.
You can't wrap your head around. How come?
I can.
Because it's like
I can.
It's like I would go down to. They did a study like that. It would be like me going down to the car wash that used to be there
Uh-huh.
on King Boulevard and
Yeah.
asking the brothers in there that's cleaning the cars and everything. He said, well, what do you think? And it'd be like, they don't want to put the cars out there and it make them feel safer, It's like, but then that process again, people again lost their livelihoods.
Mm-hmm.
Not livelihoods, they lost their homes.
Homes.
And they didn't get fair market value on that.
No, and they had to fight tooth and nail to get
I know
anything even closer to what they were beyond what they were originally offered by the city. They were offering white homeowners and landowners in the area 4 times what they were offering black homeowners for the same house, the same size house on the same street.
Yeah, they still do that now.
No, it's nothing's changed.
Nicole Hannah-Jones said that yesterday. She said that, yep. Appraisal differences.
Yeah.
So they were doing it back then. They were just offering it, but we didn't have a big fancy word for that as we do now.
No. And the way that they carried that out, so the city started well before they did any eminent domain, and they were restricting permits, so people couldn't file permits to fix their roofs, improve their properties. So anytime anybody went to go and try and get a permit, the city denied that permit. They had a moratorium on permits in that area because they were trying to drive the price of property down.
So if your roof needed fixing, and you know it needs fixing because it rained, and you say, well, I need to get some new shingles on there, they say, no, you can't get any new shingles on there.
If you needed a permit to carry out the work, you couldn't get that permit.
So then your house falls in, you need repairing, and then they take your house because they say it's
Blighted.
And
Slum. Any
they
other
get
word.
it for nothing then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
WBD, works by design.
absolutely.
Works by design.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the way it worked. I thought it was going to work like that. So how do we stop this stuff?
You got to disrupt the patterns. You have to get in the way that the institutions work, because this stuff keeps happening. People in Shreveport, Louisiana are fighting the same fight today. The people in Houston are fighting the same highway fights today. People in Portland fighting the same highway fights today. This has not stopped.
Wait a minute, they just doing it to black people again?
Again, still.
Oh, okay.
It never stopped.
Never stopped.
Never stopped.
Yep.
And so what I try to do, and the reason I wanted to write this book, was because people talk a lot about these stories individually, but we don't bring them together to see how it's all carried out in the same way, in the same playbook, time and time again. Because that's how power continues to maintain power. It keeps you segmented and fragmented so that you can't see what everybody else is doing. But if we can get into and disrupt the process, then we have an opportunity to keep it from happening again. And it requires us to not forget what has happened. Because when the physical structures are gone, it's so hard to fight for that history.
It's gone.
It's gone. And it makes it difficult to make a case to people when there's nothing left to point to. Because not everybody just wants to love an idea for an idea's sake. But when there's nothing physical left, it's 10 times harder to get anybody to care about what's there.
And you're writing another book? You're writing a follow-up?
I'm working on expanding this one to include the elm thickets, the Dolphin Heights, all those stories that I didn't get to include in this book. And I'm also working on a history of environmental racism in Dallas. So trying to get
You're working on 2 books then?
Eventually, yeah. The Deepwood dumps, the Dolphin Heights neighborhood with the landfill.
Yeah, now that's wild.
RSR.
When you go, folks, if you're from Dallas, the Dolphin Heights, you're making that turn off of I-30 and you're going up the hill. That's the Heights. Obviously, that's Dolphin Heights. And then you go down, that was the landfill. That was it.
Yep.
You go into Military Parkway, that is exactly where it is at.
Yeah,
that's it. So you're an engineer by trade.
By trade, yeah. I don't identify. Don't hold that against me.
I'm not. And I want to point that out because what we're talking about, a lot of this has to do with, well, obviously engineering, urban planning, and that's what the commish is about. I am a city planning commissioner, and that's how you got the commish title. So that falls right along with what we're doing here.
And those are the exact places where these battles are fought.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on the show. It's good to see you in person because normally when I see you, it's through the Urban Research Cluster.
You're on a screen.
I'm on the screen. I feel so dismembered up there, hey, so I have to get there in person. I tried to do that the last time around, but
it's okay.
But I'll get there. But I called you the last time. Where's the meeting?
And you were there, and then I walked out.
Yeah, you walked out. That's it. Yeah.
I had a highway fight.
You had a highway fight.
I had a highway fight. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we want you to come back again to talk a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Next time around, we'll talk about environmental racism and everything. So
talking your language.
We're talking your deal as well. Yeah. All right. You've been listening to the Commish Radio Show, and we are about to start hour number 2. Now, keep in mind, this radio podcast is carried on by people like you. Gabe, I think we have up on the scroll, I think we have how they can donate through Cash App, and we need to put Zelle up there. Someone said, I don't do Cash App, I do Zelle. So we need to put Zelle up there and PayPal as well. We, again, thank you for listening in. We want you to pick up the book, Paved Away, Infrastructure, Policy, and Racism in an American City by Collin Yarbrough, a good guy and a good friend of mine. And, hey, I want to say before I let you go, I heard about you before you finished writing your book. Dr. Candace Bledsoe spoke well of you, and I said, hey, I got to check this guy out. So when I first met you and everything, I said, I already know who you are. So thank you. I appreciate you for coming on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Y'all take care.
All right. Take care.
Hello out there. My name is Byron Williams, former NFL player. I'm with the NFL Players Association, and when I'm not in the community, I'm listening to Mr. Ed Gray, the commish.
Would you join me, please, and welcome me?
Hey, this is Cheryl Smith, and when I'm looking for news and information, I tune into the commish on Saturdays.
I got so much trouble on my mind, refuse to lose. Here's your ticket. Here's the time I get wicked. The clue to you to push the back the black attack. So I sack and dap and slack the Mac. Now I'm ready to mic it. Hear my favoritism roll.
Hi, my name is Gail Todd with Townview Realtors. If you find yourself in the market to buy, sell, lease, or maybe you want to be a part of this hot real estate market by investing, just give my team of professionals and I a call at 214-675-9572. Again, that's 214-675-9572. Or you can email me at gtodd88@yahoo.com. With me, it's all about you.
Hey, whenever I want good Cajun food, I go to Thibodeau's, located at 107 North Cedar Ridge in Duncanville, Texas. They're really hot, just like the Commish Radio Show in Thibodeau's. Hot as this gumbo. We will see you later at Thibodeau's.